Welcome one and all to another episode of From the Cinema. I am your host Josh Rudolph, and today I'm going to be reviewing one of my most anticipated movies of the year, the continuation of the R-rated Ronald McDonald saga, It Chapter 2. Now, when it comes to horror films in 2019, it's pretty safe to say that most of them have ranged from great, like the movie Us, to whatever Midsommar was. I still have no idea what that film was. All I know is that I'm never going to see it again. But where exactly does It Chapter 2 lie on this scale? Well, honestly, it does have its problems, which I'll get into, but I had a lot of fun with It Chapter 2. So, the film obviously is a continuation of It Chapter 1, for those of you somehow unaware, and the story jumps forward in time 27 years into the future where we see the adult versions of all the kids from the first movie and what kind of lives they're living. Bill is played by James McAvoy, Beverly is played by Jessica Chastain, Richie played by Bill Hader, Eddie played by James Ranson, Mike played by Isaiah Mustafa, Ben played by Jay Ryan, and Stanley played by Andy Bean. Now, we obviously can't talk about an It movie without talking about our wonderful darling of a demon clown, Pennywise, played once again by Bill Skarsgård. So, since Pennywise is back to his old tricks of eating people, it's up to the adult losers to come back to Derry and end Pennywise once and for all. Now, from that premise, it sounds like it's going to be interesting to see them come back together and use what they learned from the first movie to defeat him. But that's not exactly what happens. You see, one of the major problems with this movie that it puts into place on our characters is that because they moved away from Derry, they forgot most of what happened that summer when they were kids. So they barely remember Pennywise and what he did at all. Not only that, but the film also slightly retcons the ending to the first where they got over their fears and phobias to defeat him, but in this film it says that they never actually got over them. To me, it's an incredibly lazy way to find ways to scare them again when there are many other better ways to do so. But it's not just a loss of memory and hitting the reset button on their fears. This film does one of the biggest tropes in horror movies that is always the worst, and that's that they have the group split up to find certain items to defeat Pennywise. Now, why don't they go together, you may ask? Well, to give you the same answer the film gave me, I don't know. Doing all these story elements together hinders the story and practically destroys the character development that was done so well in the first film. Did I also mention that the writer of this film wrote the 3 Annabelle movies? However, while the story of this film may be a bit weak and do a lot that's not great, it's the performances from everyone that saves this film. Everyone from James McAvoy to Jessica Chastain to Bill freaking Hader, they all give fantastic performances that feel like an extension of the performances that the kids gave in the first one and adds more complexity to who exactly they are as people. The performance that still stands out, though, is Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. He still delivers a terrifying, yet sometimes sarcastically funny performance that is just great and will always be one of my favorite performances in a horror film.
Hello. Please.
One of the weirder things, though, when it comes to the characters is not the memory erasing or the reverse of them getting over their fears, but it's the addition of things that we didn't know about them and their current lives. What I mean by this is that the film shows us the lives of most of the Losers Club and what they become, like Beverly married someone that's abusive to her like her father was, and Eddie married someone that is literally exactly like his mother. He even accidentally calls her mom when he's talking to her. Now, this would have been an interesting look at the psyche of these characters and just how deep their childhood trauma went, but as soon as these elements are introduced, they're gone and never brought up again, leaving behind a really interesting conversation about trauma and how much it's able to affect someone. As I've also stated, they add some things to characters that were never once mentioned or hinted at in the first one, particularly with Richie. Now, I'm not going to go into spoilers about it, but it comes pretty much out of the blue and is just weird because there were never any hints to it in the first film. Now, if the first film had hinted at it, then I would be open to seeing this film explored and see how much it's affected Richie, but sadly, we don't really get that and it just feels out of place. However, like I said in the beginning, this film is a whole lot of fun. The jokes from everyone, especially Richie and Eddie, are fantastic and just as good as when Finn Wolfhard did it in the first film. The humor never felt out of place and always landed at the right time. But what really makes this movie fun is the scares. Because this film had a larger budget and a bigger ability to go more insane with its scares, we're given some incredibly fun set pieces that really show off what Pennywise can do, and it's just a blast for all of us to see, especially in the third act. However, there are way more jump scares in this one than there was in the last one. I kind of find them annoying, but at this point, it's just a small gripe with horror films. But there's a very odd thing this film does with the scares and scenes with flashbacks. You see, this film jumps back and forth between when they were kids and when they're adults at certain points in the movie. This is really just to show some more Pennywise scares to the kids, but the thing I fail to understand is, when did these scares take place? We see in the first film that for most of it they're together, and when they're apart, Pennywise is resting and waiting. So I fail to understand when this stuff actually happened. There's even one flashback with Ben in school being scared by Pennywise, but that can't happen because they're out of school for the summer, and it can't be during the school year because Pennywise disappears for 27 years. So it's the weirdest excuses to get the kids back to do more scares when there's no explanation as to when and how this could have happened. Look, Gary Dabbleman, message me so I can get some clarity on this, because that made no sense whatsoever and I need an explanation. I know that I've been giving this film a lot of gripes, but this is the last one, I swear. If you remember from my review of It Chapter 1, I said my only real problems with that film was the lack of character screen time and pretty much no explanation of why the people in the town were the way they were, and I'm here to tell you all that those problems are back again. You see, the town part doesn't even get addressed or hinted at all in this one, and characters like Mike are once again given not much to do and feel like they forgot that characters like him and Henry were even a part of this film. Don't know why they didn't fix these problems, but hey, what do I know? Now it's time for the part of the review where I get technical again. Look, I know that you know that I'm a nerd, and I'm very proud of that, but please be a nerd as well and partake in me discussing some technical film things about this film. When it comes to the cinematography and editing in this film, it's pretty much on par with the first film. Scares are well edited and given enough screen time for them to really take effect, just like in the first film. What I really want to discuss, though, are the effects and the makeup, because I have some thoughts. One thing that many of you might not know is that these kids went through puberty between making these two films. I mean, have you seen Finn Wolfhard in Stranger Things Season 3? That kid grew up almost as tall as me, and I'm a giant. So it stands to reason that they were going to have to de-age them to look the same age as they did in the first film. And this does work for most of the time, but sometimes it's a little off-putting because they had to use body doubles and do the whole CGI put face onto another face process. Sometimes it doesn't look that great, and what gives it away is that the kids are trying to sound younger like in the first film, but it's very obvious that most of them are baritones now. It's really more of a nitpick more than anything else, but the effects overall were really good. The makeup and costume department once again need to be praised for what they were able to do with Pennywise. He's just scary and intimidating, and I would totally wet my pants if I saw him when I was 9, so good job, guys. Overall, while I found a lot more problems with It Chapter 2 than I did with the first one, like backtracking of the character arcs, the lack of exploration into their characters, and the story being pretty generic for this film, I had a really fun time with this movie. The cast was fantastic, the scares kept me engaged throughout the whole film, and I just could not wait to see Pennywise appear again and see how this all ended. So because of those reasons, I'm going to give It Chapter 2 a 7 out of 10. Now, I'm willing to bet that's a bit higher than you expected, but it's what I believe because I can tell that a lot of work and effort went into making this film the best that it could possibly be, given the script that they were given, and knowing what I know about how the book ends, I would gladly take this over that. Seriously, the book has a turtle god in it. So that was my review of It Chapter 2. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to follow me and Mason Cable Network on all our social medias, and make sure to check in next week for the next episode. I've been Josh Rudolph, and I'll see you all next time.